The first time I met my future mother-in-law, she was wearing a Chanel suit and a sneer that could curdle milk. I had rehearsed this moment countless times in my head, but nothing could have prepared me for the Arctic chill of her disapproval. My name is Caitlin, and that day changed everything. So, you're the girl my son has been wasting his time with, Sylvia said, her manicured fingers wrapped around a crystal wine glass. The restaurant's soft lighting did nothing to soften her sharp edges. Mom! Liam's voice carried a warning, but she waved it away like an annoying fly. I work in marketing, I offered, trying to keep my voice steady. I just landed a position at marketing. She cut me off with a laugh that wasn't really a laugh. How quaint. And where did you attend university, dear? State, I replied, feeling my cheeks burn. On a full scholarship. Of course you did. Her lips pursed as if she'd tasted something bitter. Liam, darling, remember Caroline? She's finishing her PhD at Yale. Her father just made partner at... Mother, stop. Liam reached for my hand under the table, squeezing it. I love Caitlin. That's all that matters. The waiter arrived with our appetizers, providing a brief respite from the interrogation. I watched Sylvia dissect her foie gras with surgical precision, wondering if she was imagining it was my heart. Tell me, Caitlin, she continued, dabbing her lips with a napkin. What are your aspirations? Surely you don't plan to remain in such an entry-level position forever. Actually, I have plans to... Because my son, she interrupted again, has a legacy to uphold. The Richards name means something in this city. We built our company from nothing. Liam is next in line to... I'm well aware of the company's history, I said, finding my voice, and I have my own ambitions. Sylvia's eyebrow arched. Do you now? How fascinating. And what makes you think you're qualified to... That's enough. Liam stood up, his napkin falling to the floor. We're leaving. Mother, I love you, but this ends now. The next 6 months were a blur of subtle sabotage. Somehow, every job interview I lined up mysteriously canceled. Every promising lead went cold. Sylvia's influence in the business world ran deep, and she wielded it like a weapon. But Liam never wavered. One night, as we walked along the river, he stopped and turned to me. I can't change who my mother is, he said, getting down on one knee. But I can choose who I want to spend my life with. The ring caught the moonlight, and tears sprang to my eyes. Yes, I whispered, 1,000 times yes. When we told Sylvia, her reaction was nuclear. If you marry her, she hissed at Liam, don't expect me at the wedding. Then I guess you'll miss it, he replied. Our wedding day was perfect, despite, or maybe because of, her absence. Annalise, my best friend, hugged me tight after the ceremony. You know she'll never stop, she warned. Sylvia won't rest until she proves she was right about you. I looked across the reception hall at Liam, who was laughing with our guests. Then I'll just have to prove her wrong. That night, as we danced under string lights, Garrett, a family friend and veteran business executive, pulled me aside. I've known Sylvia for 20 years, he said, his eyes kind but serious. She's powerful, but she's not invincible. Remember that. I nodded, a plan already forming in my mind. Thank you, Garrett. Later, in our hotel room, Liam held me close. I'm sorry about my mother, he whispered. Don't be, I replied, thinking of Sylvia's smug certainty of my mediocrity. Your mother just gave me something priceless. What's that? I smiled in the darkness. Motivation. Because that's the thing about being underestimated. It lights a fire in your belly that nothing can extinguish. Sylvia thought she was writing me off that night at dinner, but she was really writing the first chapter of her own downfall. She just didn't know it yet, and I was going to enjoy proving her wrong, one success at a time. Another rejection? Annalise pushed a coffee across her kitchen table to me. That's the third one this month. I stared at the politely worded email on my phone. Apparently, they're going in a different direction, just like the last 4 companies. Sylvia's fingerprints are all over this, Annalise said, her dark eyes flashing with anger. She's poisoning the well. I took a sip of coffee, trying to swallow my frustration along with it. I can't prove anything. She's too smart for that. My phone buzzed. Liam calling. Hey, how did the interview go? Same story, different day, I sighed. I'm starting to think I should leave marketing altogether. Don't let her win, he said firmly. That's exactly what she wants. After hanging up, Annalise grabbed her laptop. You know what? Screw this. We're finding you something so good even Sylvia can't touch it. We spent hours scrolling through job listings until my eyes burned. Nothing felt right until Annalise suddenly sat up straight. Holy shit, she breathed. Look at this. The posting was for a marketing director position at TechVision, a rising star in the tech industry. They specialized in innovative software solutions, far removed from Sylvia's traditional business circles. They're looking for someone who can think outside the box, I read aloud. Someone who can translate complex tech concepts into compelling stories. That's you, Annalise said, pointing at the screen. Remember that campaign you did for the startup last year? The one that went viral? Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Garrett. Caitlin, he said without preamble. I heard about today. Listen, I'm meeting some colleagues for drinks tonight. One of them is looking for fresh talent. Join us? The bar was upscale but comfortable. Garrett waved me over to a table where two men sat nursing whiskeys. Caitlin, meet Marcus from TechVision, Garrett said with a knowing smile. We were just discussing their marketing challenges. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't a coincidence. Actually, Marcus leaned forward. I saw that campaign you did for Innovate Lab. Brilliant stuff. How did you manage to make artificial intelligence sound sexy? For the next hour, we talked strategy, vision, and the future of tech marketing. It felt natural, exciting, everything my recent interviews hadn't been. When can you start? Marcus asked. I nearly choked on my drink. I'm sorry? The position. It's yours if you want it. He slid his business card across the table. We need someone who gets it. You get it. Later that night, I called Liam with the news. That's amazing, he exclaimed. And the best part is, Mom can't possibly have any influence there. About that, I said carefully. Should we tell her? No, he replied firmly. Let's keep this one to ourselves. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. TechVision was everything I'd hoped for and more. My ideas were heard, implemented, celebrated. For the first time in months, I felt like myself again. Your proposal for the new product launch is incredible, Marcus said during my third week. The board wants you to present it personally. The presentation was a success. As I walked back to my office, my phone buzzed with a text from Annalise. Check your email now. There it was. An industry newsletter announcing Sylvia's company was struggling. Their market share was dropping and rumors of leadership changes were swirling. Karma's a bitch, Annalise texted again, but I didn't feel satisfaction. Instead, I felt something else. Determination. This wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about proving I could succeed on my own terms. That evening, Garrett stopped by my office. You've done well, he said, looking around at my already personalized space. But this is just the beginning. What do you mean? He smiled mysteriously. Let's just say the tech industry is about to get very interesting. Keep doing what you're doing and doors will open. As I drove home that night, I thought about how different my life looked from just a few months ago. Sylvia had tried to clip my wings, but instead she'd forced me to learn to soar. My phone lit up with a message from Liam. Mom asked about you today, said she heard rumors you'd left marketing. I smiled, thinking of the presentation I'd nailed earlier. Tell her not to worry about me, I typed back. I'm exactly where I need to be. And for the first time in a long time, that felt absolutely true. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the future of personal technology. I stood before TechVision's largest conference room, heart pounding as I unveiled our newest product line. The holographic display behind me sparkled with promise. 6 months had passed since I'd joined the company and everything had changed. The room was packed with investors, tech journalists, and industry leaders, all hanging on my every word. Holy shit, Marcus whispered as we walked out amid thunderous applause. You just landed us 3 major distribution deals in one presentation. My phone buzzed immediately. Annalise, turn on CNBC right now. I rushed to my office and flipped on the TV. There it was, our product launch making headlines. The stock was soaring. Marketing Director Caitlin delivers groundbreaking presentation, sending TechVision shares up 15% in early trading. My office door flew open. Marcus stood there, grinning. VP of Marketing. What? That's your new title. Board just approved it. Unanimous decision. Before I could process this, Garrett appeared behind him. Told you doors would open, he winked. That evening, I met Liam for dinner at our favorite restaurant. His face lit up when he saw me. "There's my corporate superstar," he said, pulling me into a hug. "I saw the news. You're incredible. How's your mother taking it?" I couldn't help asking. His expression turned serious. "She's distracted. The company's in trouble, Caitlin. Real trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "They're hemorrhaging market share. The board is talking about new leadership." He paused. "She's losing her grip." Just then, my phone rang. Marcus again. "Sorry to interrupt your evening, but you need to see this." He sent a link to an article. "Traditional giant falls as tech sector soars. Inside the decline of Richards Industries." "Keep reading," Marcus said. The article detailed how Sylvia's company had failed to adapt to changing markets, clinging to outdated business models while companies like TechVision innovated. "Their board is meeting next week," Marcus continued. "Word is they're looking for buyers." I felt a strange mix of emotions. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because," he said carefully, "we're interested, and you know their market better than anyone." The next morning, I walked into another presentation, this time analyzing the potential acquisition of Sylvia's company. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Their infrastructure is solid," I explained to the board. "Their client base is loyal. With our technology and their reach, we could revolutionize the industry." Afterward, Garrett pulled me aside. "You handled that beautifully. No hint of personal bias." "Because there isn't any," I replied. "This is business, not revenge." "Good," he nodded, "because things are about to get interesting. The board loved your analysis. They're moving forward with the acquisition." That night, I couldn't sleep. Liam found me in our home office, staring at my laptop. "You okay?" he asked softly. "I just found out something crazy," I said. "After the acquisition, all current employees will be retained, including your mother." He sat down heavily. "So she'll be working for me. Well, TechVision, but yes, technically me." The next few weeks were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and strategy sessions. The acquisition moved forward at lightning speed. Then came the email that made my heart stop. "All staff meeting, Monday 9 a.m., introduction of new leadership team." Annalise came over to help me prepare. "What are you going to wear?" "Something that says, 'I'm not the girl you dismissed anymore,' without actually saying it," I replied, sorting through my closet. "You're not that girl," she said firmly. "You're the woman who saved her company." Monday morning arrived too quickly. I stood in my office adjusting my blazer when Garrett knocked. "Ready?" he asked. "No," I admitted. "But let's do this anyway." The conference room was packed. I spotted Sylvia in the third row, looking smaller somehow, her perfect posture slightly wilted. She hadn't seen me yet. Marcus stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your new executive team." I took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The moment Sylvia's eyes met mine, time seemed to freeze. I watched as recognition, shock, and something else, was it fear, crossed her face. "Good morning," I said into the microphone, my voice steady. "I'm Caitlin, your new Chief Innovation Officer." The room erupted in polite applause, but I kept my eyes on Sylvia. She sat perfectly still, her face a mask of disbelief. The tables hadn't just turned, they'd been completely flipped, and this was only the beginning. "She's been avoiding me for 2 weeks," I told Annalise over lunch. "Every time I walk into a meeting, she suddenly has an urgent phone call." "Can you blame her?" Annalise stabbed at her salad. "You're literally her boss now. That's got to sting." The restaurant buzzed with the usual lunch crowd, but I couldn't focus on my food. The merger was complete, but the real work was just beginning. My phone lit up with a message from Marcus. "Board meeting in an hour, big news." "Something's up," I told Annalise. "I've got to go." The boardroom was unusually full when I arrived. Marcus stood at the head of the table, looking both excited and nervous. "I'm stepping down," he announced without preamble. The room erupted in murmurs. "And I'm recommending Caitlin as my replacement." My heart stopped. "CEO? Me?" The vote was unanimous. Garrett added, sliding a folder across the table. "Congratulations, Caitlin." As the room cleared out, Marcus pulled me aside. "You've earned this. The merger was just the beginning. Show them what you can really do." Back in my office, I found Liam waiting with a bouquet of flowers. "Garrett called me." He grinned. "My wife, the CEO, Mom's gonna lose it." "About that," I said, taking the flowers. "I need to handle this carefully. She's still valuable to the company." And you're not going to fire her out of spite, he finished, because you're better than that. Actually, I have a different idea. The next morning, I had my assistant send out a company-wide memo. All department heads to attend strategic planning meeting Thursday, 10th a.m. Sylvia couldn't avoid this one. Thursday arrived, and I watched through my office window as employees filed into the conference room. Sylvia entered last, her head held high despite the obvious tension in her shoulders. I straightened my jacket and walked in. Good morning, everyone. As your new CEO, I want to discuss our vision for the future. For the next hour, I outlined my plans for modernizing our traditional business lines while expanding our tech presence. Sylvia sat silently, her expression unreadable. And finally, I said, I'd like to announce some organizational changes. Sylvia? Her head snapped up. Your experience in traditional markets is invaluable. I'd like you to head our new Legacy Innovation Division, bridging our traditional strengths with our new capabilities. The room was silent. Sylvia's mouth opened slightly, then closed. We'll discuss the details in private, I added. Meeting adjourned. As others filed out, Sylvia remained seated. I could feel Garrett's approving nod as he left us alone. Why? She finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Because you built something remarkable, I replied, and because destroying it wouldn't prove anything. She stood up slowly. You could fire me. No one would blame you. Is that what you would do? It's what I did try to do to you, she admitted. Multiple times. I know. I sat on the edge of the conference table. But this isn't about revenge. It's about business, and you know this business better than anyone. I underestimated you, she said quietly. Yes, you did. The question is, will you make the same mistake twice? Before she could answer, my phone buzzed. The stock was up 20% on news of my appointment. Think about the offer, I said, heading for the door. We can discuss terms tomorrow. That evening, I found Liam cooking dinner in our kitchen. How did it go with Mom? I offered her a job she can't refuse, I said, stealing a piece of bell pepper from his cutting board, one that lets her keep her dignity while actually helping the company. And if she refuses? She won't, I smiled. Your mother may hate me, but she loves winning more, and this way, we both win. My phone lit up with a message from Sylvia. I accept the position. On one condition, dinner with you and Liam this weekend. There are things I need to say. I showed Liam the message. He raised his eyebrows. Are you going to accept? What do you think? I think, he said, pulling me close, that you've already proven everything you needed to prove. Whatever happens next is just life. I typed back, dinner sounds perfect. Saturday at 7? Sylvia's response came quickly. I'll make reservations. And Caitlin, thank you. 2 simple words, but they carried the weight of years of antagonism, pride, and finally, perhaps, understanding. Well, I said to Liam, this should be interesting. He laughed. That's one word for it. You know what's funny? You've actually done exactly what Mom always wanted, taken the company to new heights, just not the way she expected. I smiled, thinking of tomorrow's headlines. TechVision appoints youngest CEO in company history. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's success on your own terms. The restaurant Sylvia chose was the same one where we'd first met, a detail that couldn't be coincidental. This time, though, I walked in as a CEO, not a nervous girlfriend seeking approval. They're already here, the hostess said, leading me to a private corner table. Sylvia stood as I approached, her designer dress as impeccable as ever. Liam rose too, kissing my cheek. You're looking well, Sylvia said, her voice carefully neutral. The papers have been very complimentary. The markets, too, I replied, unfolding my napkin. We're up 30% since the merger. The waiter appeared with wine, giving us a moment to settle into an uneasy silence. Sylvia took a long sip before speaking again. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she began, about the past, about my behavior. Mom, Liam warned, but she held up her hand. Please, let me finish. She set down her glass. I was wrong about you, Caitlin. Spectacularly, embarrassingly wrong. You don't have to. Yes, I do. Her voice cracked slightly. I tried to destroy your career. I used every connection I had to close doors for you. And do you know what happened? I waited, watching her compose herself. You built your own doors, better ones. While I was so busy protecting what I had, you were creating something new. She laughed softly. The irony is, you've done exactly what I always wanted for this company. You've made it stronger. Liam reached for my hand under the table as his mother continued. Yesterday, I reviewed your proposals for the Legacy Innovation Division. They're brilliant. You're not just preserving what we built, you're transforming it. That's why I wanted you to lead it, I said. Nobody knows that world better than you do. The waiter returned for our orders, providing a brief respite from the emotional weight of the conversation. There's something else, Sylvia said once he'd gone. Something I need to show you. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a letter of resignation. What is this? I demanded. We just announced your new position. Read it, she insisted. The letter was dated for 6 months in the future. I don't understand. I'll help you establish the division, get everything running smoothly, she explained. But then I need to step away, for both our sakes. Mom, no, Liam protested. It's time, darling. She smiled sadly. I've had my time at the top. Now it's Caitlin's turn, and I don't want my presence to complicate things. I won't accept this, I said, pushing the envelope back across the table. You will, she replied firmly, because it's the right thing for the company, and because I'm asking you to. Our food arrived, but none of us touched it. What will you do? Liam asked. Travel, consult, maybe write that book I've always talked about. She turned to me. Unless you'd rather I leave immediately? No, I said quickly. We need you for this transition. But Sylvia, yes? This doesn't mean you're not family anymore. Her eyes welled up, and for the first time, I saw the vulnerability behind her perfect facade. I don't deserve that kindness, she whispered. Maybe not, I agreed. But family isn't about deserving, it's about choosing, and I choose to move forward. Liam squeezed my hand, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Besides, I added, managing a smile, someone needs to teach me how to handle the old guard board members. They still think I'm too young and too tech-focused. Sylvia's expression shifted to something more familiar, a hint of her old strategic gleam. Oh, I can help with that. Starting with Harold. He's terrified of change, but he has a weakness for artisanal whiskey. For the next hour, we actually talked, really talked, about business, family, and the future. The food grew cold, but nobody seemed to notice. As we were leaving, Sylvia pulled me aside. There's one more thing. Your office? What about it? It's all wrong for a CEO, too modern, too casual. Let me help you redesign it. I started to protest, but caught the look in her eyes, not controlling this time, but hopeful. Okay, I said, but no antique mahogany. We'll compromise, she smiled, just like family should. Outside, Liam wrapped an arm around me as we watched his mother's car pull away. That went better than expected, he said. It did. I leaned into him. Think she meant it? About leaving? Yes, he nodded. But I also think she meant it about family. You did that, you know. You could have destroyed her, but you chose something better. Speaking of better, I said, checking my phone, wait until you see what I have planned for Monday's board meeting. Do I want to know? Let's just say your mother's not the only one who knows how to make an impact. The night air was cool, full of possibility. Sometimes the best victories aren't the ones you plan for, but the ones that surprise you along the way. Your mother is actually a brilliant strategist when she's not trying to destroy someone's career, I told Liam over breakfast. Yesterday, she helped me navigate 3 potential investor conflicts I didn't even see coming. Are we talking about the same Sylvia? Annalise asked from my phone on speaker. The one who once told a recruiter you were mentally unstable? People can change, I said, but Annalise snorted. Or they can pretend to change while plotting their comeback. Before I could respond, my assistant buzzed through. Emergency board meeting in 30 minutes. Someone leaked confidential merger details to the press. My stomach dropped. I looked at Liam, who was already shaking his head. She wouldn't, he said firmly. Not now. I rushed to the office, finding the board members already assembled. Harold, the oldest member, was waving a newspaper. This is unacceptable, he thundered. Our entire strategy exposed. If I may, Sylvia's voice cut through the chaos. She stood in the doorway, holding a stack of papers. I've traced the leak. All eyes turned to her. My heart raced. Was this her power play? It was Thomas from legal, she continued, dropping the evidence on the table. He's been selling information to our competitors for months. I have the emails to prove it. The room erupted in discussion. I caught Sylvia's eye, and she gave me a slight nod. After the meeting, she followed me to my office. You thought it was me. The thought crossed my mind, I admitted. It would have been, she said quietly, 6 months ago. But I meant what I said about changing. Thank you for finding the leak. It's my job. She paused. And I owe you. Just then, Garrett appeared in the doorway. Ladies, we have a situation. The press is downstairs, wanting comments about the leak. I'll handle it, I said, standing. No, Sylvia interjected. Let me. I know how these vultures think. I trained half of them. I watched from my window as Sylvia approached the reporters. Her performance was masterful, turning a potential crisis into a story about corporate vigilance and integrity. She's good, Garrett said, joining me at the window. She's teaching me, I replied, in her own way. That evening, I met Annalise for our weekly dinner. She listened skeptically as I recounted the day's events. Okay, she finally said, but remember when she told your college alumni magazine you'd faked your credentials? That was different. She was protecting what she thought was hers. Now what? Now she's protecting something we both care about, the company's future. My phone buzzed. A message from Sylvia. Dinner tomorrow? There's something we need to discuss. I showed Annalise the text. She raised an eyebrow. Trap? Only one way to find out. The next evening, I met Sylvia at a quiet bistro. She was already there, looking unusually nervous. I'm moving up my resignation, she said as soon as I sat down. What? Why? Because you don't need me anymore. She smiled sadly. Today proved that. You've got this, Caitlin, and my presence, it complicates things. But the transition plan is already working perfectly. The old guard respects you now. The young guns admire you. And the middle management, she laughed. They're terrified of you in the best way possible. Where will you go? Paris first, then maybe Tokyo. I've always wanted to see how business works there. I studied her face, looking for signs of deception, but found only sincerity. There's something else, she added, reaching into her bag. My personal contact list. Every power player, every influencer I've known for 30 years. They're yours now. Sylvia, I can't. Yes, you can. Because you'll use them better than I did. You'll build instead of destroy. Just then, Liam walked in. Sorry I'm late. Did you tell her? Tell me what? Sylvia took a deep breath. I've recommended you for the Global Business Leadership Award. The committee votes next week. That's your award. You've won it 3 times. And now it's your turn. She reached across the table and took my hand. Let me do this for you. Let me be proud of my daughter-in-law. The word hung in the air between us. Daughter-in-law. Not rival, not usurper, but family. Okay, I said finally, but you have to be there when they announce it. I wouldn't miss it. She squeezed my hand. And Caitlin, thank you for showing me there's more than one way to build a legacy. As we left the restaurant, Liam pulled me close. You okay? Yeah, I smiled. I think I finally am. Because sometimes the greatest victory isn't in defeating your enemies, but in turning them into allies, into family. The award ceremony buzzed with anticipation. Every major business figure in the city filled the grand ballroom, their conversations creating a gentle roar. Stop fidgeting, Annalise whispered, adjusting my dress. You've got this. Is she here? I asked, scanning the crowd. Front row, next to Liam, looking surprisingly proud. Garrett appeared, champagne in hand. They're ready for you. Remember, this isn't just an acceptance speech. It's your moment to define your vision. I took the stage as the room fell silent. The spotlights were blinding, but I could make out Sylvia's face in the front row. She nodded slightly, encouragingly. 10 years ago, I began. I sat in a restaurant being told I wasn't good enough, that I didn't belong in this world. The audience stirred. Everyone knew the story. Today, I stand here not because I proved someone wrong, but because I proved something right. That success isn't about destroying competition. It's about creating something better. I caught Sylvia wiping her eye discreetly. Our company's strength doesn't come from tradition alone or innovation alone. It comes from bringing them together, from understanding that every person, every perspective has value. The next part wasn't in my prepared speech, but the words came naturally. I'd like to thank someone special, someone who taught me that the hardest person to prove yourself to is often yourself. Sylvia, would you join me up here? A collective gasp rippled through the room. Sylvia's eyes widened in surprise, but Liam gently nudged her forward. This woman, I continued as she climbed the stairs, taught me more about business than any mentor could, sometimes through opposition, sometimes through support, but always through example. Sylvia reached me, her composure slightly cracked. The Global Business Leadership Award traditionally celebrates individual achievement, but true leadership isn't about standing alone. It's about bringing people together. I turned to face her directly. Sylvia, you're leaving for Paris next week. But before you go, I want to announce something. Our Legacy Innovation Division, which you helped build, will be renamed the Sylvia Innovation Center. The audience erupted in applause. Sylvia's hand flew to her mouth. Because some legacies deserve to be remembered, I finished, and some bridges deserve to be built. The standing ovation was immediate. Through tears, Sylvia pulled me into a tight hug. You impossible, brilliant girl, she whispered. You've outdone me again. As we left the stage, reporters swarmed around us. Is this the end of your famous rivalry? One shouted. Sylvia took the microphone. Rivalry? No. This is the story of how my daughter-in-law taught me that the best business leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. At the after-party, Garrett raised his glass. To the most unexpected partnership in business history. To family, Liam added, pulling both me and his mother close. Speaking of family, Sylvia said, suddenly serious, there's something I need to say. We found a quiet corner away from the crowd. I was wrong about you from the start, she began. I was so focused on protecting what I'd built that I couldn't see you were building something better. Sylvia, let me finish. I've spent years trying to control everything, everyone. But watching you lead, it's shown me a different way. You've taken everything I tried to use against you and turned it into strength. Annalise appeared with more champagne. Sorry to interrupt, but they need you both for photos. One moment, Sylvia said. She reached into her clutch and pulled out an envelope. My wedding gift to you and Liam. I know it's 2 years late, but inside was a letter transferring her remaining company shares to us. Mom, no, Liam protested. Yes, she said firmly. It's time. I've held on too tight for too long. Besides, she smiled at me, I know they're in good hands. Later that night, as the party wound down, I found myself alone with Sylvia on the balcony. Paris will be quiet after all this, she mused. You could stay, I offered. The Innovation Center needs its namesake. She shook her head. No, you've built something remarkable here. Now it's time for me to build something new for myself. Will you visit? Try to keep me away. She touched my arm. Especially after what Liam told me earlier. I froze. He didn't. A grandmother has a right to know, she winked. Don't worry, I'll be back before your showing. Inside, the photographer called for one last photo. Sylvia and I stood together, no longer adversaries, not quite friends, but something more important, family. Ready? The photographer asked. We looked at each other and smiled. Ready for the photo, ready for the future, ready for whatever came next. Because sometimes the best endings aren't endings at all, but new beginnings. Your mother is calling again, Liam said, holding up my buzzing phone. Third time today. I grabbed it from his hand, balancing my laptop on my growing belly. Sylvia, we talked about this. The nursery doesn't need imported Italian wallpaper. But darling, I found this absolutely perfect pattern in Milan. Mom, I cut her off. You're supposed to be enjoying your retirement. I am. Just yesterday I closed a deal with... She caught herself. I mean, I had a lovely croissant at that cafe you recommended. Liam snorted. I put the phone on speaker. What deal? Nothing major. Just helped a struggling French tech startup secure funding. They reminded me of you, actually. Brilliant ideas, no connections. So much for retirement, I laughed. Speaking of business, she said, her tone shifting. Have you seen today's Financial Times? I pulled up the article on my screen. TechVision announces revolutionary AI platform. Read the comments section. There it was, a comment from Harold, our once skeptical board member. Under Caitlin's leadership, we've achieved what Sylvia always envisioned, true innovation with respect for tradition. He's right, Sylvia said softly. You've done more than I ever could. My assistant buzzed through on the other line. The press is here for the platform launch. Go, Sylvia said. Make them remember why they doubted you. The press conference was packed. I took the podium, feeling the baby kick as if in encouragement. Today marks more than a product launch, I began. It represents a bridge between old and new, tradition and innovation. Much like the bridge I once thought impossible to build with my mother-in-law. The reporters chuckled knowingly. She taught me that true success isn't about proving others wrong. It's about proving yourself right. And sometimes your biggest obstacle can become your greatest ally. My phone lit up with a text from Sylvia. Making me cry in Paris. Not fair. After the conference, Annalise hugged me tight. Remember when we used to plot revenge scenarios in my kitchen? Feels like another lifetime, I admitted. Because it was. Look at you now. CEO, mother-to-be, and you actually made Sylvia Richards admit she was wrong. That's better than any revenge. Garrett appeared with news. The AI platform pre-orders just crashed our servers. We're looking at record numbers. Send the data to Sylvia, I said. She'll want to see this. Already did, he winked. She says to tell you she's not crying, it's just French allergies. That evening, during our weekly video call, Sylvia looked unusually serious. I've been thinking, she said, about legacy, about family. Sylvia, let me finish. I'm coming home, not to work, she added quickly, seeing my expression. But this baby, my grandchild, some things matter more than business empires. What about your Paris ventures? They can wait, or I'll manage them remotely. I've learned from the best, after all. She smiled. Besides, someone needs to teach this child proper business etiquette. You mean someone needs to spoil them rotten? Liam called from off-screen. That too, she admitted. Later, as Liam and I walked through the office, we passed the Sylvia Innovation Center. The plaque caught the evening light, and I stopped to read the quote we'd chosen. Success is not measured by what we achieve alone, but by what we inspire in others. You know what's funny? Liam said, wrapping his arms around me. You two are more alike than either of you ever realized. Don't let her hear you say that. Too late. Sylvia's voice came from my phone, still on speaker. And he's right. We all laughed, the sound echoing through the empty office. You know, Sylvia continued, I spent years trying to protect my legacy, never realizing that sometimes the best legacy is letting someone else build something better. We built it together, I corrected. Even when we were fighting, we were pushing each other to be better. And now, she asked, now we keep building, just maybe with less drama? Where's the fun in that? She teased. But first, about that nursery. No Italian wallpaper? Fine, she sighed. French then? As Liam and I headed home, I caught our reflection in the office windows. Me, my husband, our future child, and Sylvia's face on the phone screen, all of us laughing together. Sometimes the happy ending isn't what you imagined. Sometimes it's better. Because real success isn't about winning or losing. It's about finding your place in a story bigger than yourself. And sometimes that story turns out to be about family after all.